All right, I'm excited about this episode. Yasmina, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series. And I know we absolutely don't have to prove that you are a leaders who care, a leader who cares. However, this is going to show the world, that you really do deserve to be on a Leaders Who Care series. So again, welcome.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, and I'm really excited to be on your show.
Well, let's start. The usual best place to start is if you can share a little bit about who Yasmina is. And I especially have to do an asterisk for men, because when I ask them this, they usually start with their title and their business, and that's not the question. The question is, for example, like, where are you now? Where do you live? Where are you from originally? Family, anything you feel comfortable talking about, family, siblings, ex-boyfriend, whatever. Um,
That's great.
and maybe something you've never told anybody you want to reveal to the world now, things like that. So share a little bit.
Just like super simple, shallow stuff to start off with.
Well,
Amazing.
yeah.
Well, I was actually going to start off with I was a human being who was born.
We can go with that. You were, in fact.
Yeah. And let me see. I was born and raised in London. I was a super shy kid, but also a very creative kid. And while the shyness at that time in my life was my biggest pain point, it also became my biggest catalyst for growth. And I do believe that your biggest mess often becomes your biggest message. So, right now, after a lot of personal development and spiritual growth and being on a crazy up and down entrepreneurial journey for the past several years, my mission is really to help lead us into a world and a reality where everyone is living their most magical life. Where everyone wakes up in the morning and they are so excited to get out of bed and they have a life full of meaning and joy and love and connection and they see magic and miracles everywhere they go. And I believe that that's a reality that is available to all of us.
Well, I actually love that, and we'll get into it a little bit more because the terms magic and love have generally not been in business, and I think that's really where we can make a big impact of including them in business and the entrepreneurial journey. Do you have siblings? Do you have brothers, sisters, family that you want to even share about or not?
I do, yes. I have two lovely parents, a lovely younger sister who is an incredibly talented fashion designer and is on an incredible fitness journey. My mother has a very wild life story from being in a car crash at age 8, becoming paraplegic from the chest down to becoming a concert pianist. Um, like excelling at several universities and just being an absolute boss. And my father's also been a very wonderful and nurturing influence in my life.
I can see right away where we'll get into influencers later about, how sometimes the challenges you have early turn into opportunities for greatness afterwards. So kudos to your parents. That's amazing. We're talking about siblings and stuff. What were you like? You said you were shy. And what were you into as a kid and a teenager? Were you doing summer jobs? Were you doing sports, music, movies? What were you into?
What was I into? When I was like before 10, I loved singing. I loved acting. I mean, that never really ended, but I was most in my divine essence and hadn't developed so many limiting beliefs around it. I loved acting. I loved singing. I loved being on a stage. I loved that form of expression. And I also loved street dance, but I didn't think I was very good at it. I was always kind of weedy in the back row. But there is a pretty cool video of me break dancing for 30 seconds when I was about 10. And then beyond that, I got super into music and languages. So I was very much a polyglot when I was a teenager. I learned a lot of languages and was very obsessed with the art of how can I speak in different accents and get to know different cultures. And it was just one of those things that I had a knack for. And I also got very into music. I studied at the Royal College of Music for 4 years. When I was younger, I learned piano, classical piano. I learned some jazz piano. I played double bass in orchestras for 8 years. I sang in a lot of choirs. So yeah, very, very creative and very artsy.
Where was the shy part in there?
So I was always able to thrive on a stage, but as soon as I would get off the stage, I would shrivel. I didn't know how to connect with people. I knew how to command a room on a stage, and it was safe for me to be on the stage because on the stage I wasn't myself necessarily. I was more playing a character or a role, and it's much easier to be judged as that than it is as your true self. And I really struggled to fit in at school with the other kids. I was terrified to put up my hand. I would spend a lot of my time hiding and escaping my life in the library
Got it.
with books. I loved, sinking into fiction books, but a part of that was also I just didn't want to face the reality of my life, and I really didn't know how to communicate with people, and it was definitely the biggest challenge of my life at that time.
Yeah, good for you. I think my kids would love speaking to you. Actually, one of my sons is an actor, the other one's in music, and they would get what you're talking about 100 million,
Mm.
100 million%, and probably a lot of other people I would think would too from those experiences.
Mm.
Um, did you ever want to perform on stage, or was it all? How did it end up turning towards business? And by the way, how many languages do you speak? Vous parlez français, hablas español.
Sí,
Achtung.
claro. Um, I if you count ancient languages, I've studied 10.
Wow.
I can speak eight to various different levels and five relatively fluently.
I think that's fantastic. It's a little off track, and we'll spend too much time in it, but I love the idea. First of all, I admire people that can pick up languages that quickly. I think it's an art. I guess there's some positives about Google and them being able to translate for us. But don't you find the experience of knowing where things were derived from by knowing different languages and understanding cultures better by knowing different languages has really been valuable for you?
I would say so. I'm sure it shaped me in many ways, and it like brings out my inner nerd. Like as soon as you said that, like if I think I still love dance. I love partner dancing now, and I think of the word tango, which I don't dance tango necessarily, but tango comes from the first person present Latin verb. It means I touch. That's literally what tango means.
Oh.
And if you think about the tango, well, it's a very sensual dance. So yeah, it definitely helps you soak in culture a lot more deeply. Like whenever I go into a church and I can understand the Latin, like that, it adds a new dimension of richness. And I was always really moved by the Nelson Mandela quote, where he said something along the lines of if you speak to a man in his language in a language he understands, it goes to his head. But if you speak to a man in his own language, it goes to his heart. And so that's such a beautiful vehicle for a deeper appreciation of the richness of life and a deeper connection with others.
Yeah, I love it. I would put that together with Maya Angelou, who said, I'm sure you know it, most people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you've done, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's beautiful.
Yeah, both of those are incredible. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. You went well then you went to you went to school. You always had the interest in language and music early on. You got your bachelor's and master's in modern language and management studies at Cambridge Judge Business School and also University of Cambridge. Um, then you went on, as if that wasn't enough, to get your master's in innovation, entrepreneurship, and management at Imperial Business School. So interesting combination. I love the combination, but what were you envisioning at the time?
I mean, at the time, I was always a goody two shoes at school, so I always did my best to get good grades. I've never been drunk to this day. And so, I'd always been instilled with the values of having drive, especially from my mother and all of the things that she accomplished, and to work very hard. And so that's exactly what I did. And so it's funny, actually, I really wanted to study in the States. And I got rejected from most of the big schools, but I ended up getting into Columbia University and NYU as an like they want as an honors student or something. And like I was so excited to go to Columbia. I was like, "Woo, yeah, go Lions, liberal arts." Like I've people often compare me to Leonardo da Vinci, and I don't mean that in like an egotistical way. I more mean it's just like a Renaissance woman. I have so many passions. I love so many things. I loved the idea of liberal arts. And so that's what I loved about the States. And Americans are also so visionary and they think big and they want to make a massive impact in the world. Um, But then the letter came and they were like, you got no financial aid, which led to me crying on a floor. So that door was closed to me. And so in the UK, if you want to get into a good university, you kind of have to apply for a subject you're good at. So I was really good at languages. So I was like, well, I'll get into Cambridge for languages, I suppose. And I did.
Smart.
And so it was beautiful to like have the Hogwarts experience and live in a building that looked like a castle and to just, get super into literature and deepening my knowledge of French and Italian, and which also, I ended up living abroad in Paris for half a year. I lived in Italy for half a year. I lived with nuns for a month. Absolutely hilarious experience. And yeah, so that's kind of what got me into those places. But the thing I really loved and cared about with languages was actually learning the language. And a lot of when you study it academically is we're going to analyze a passage of this literature from the 18th century. And I was like, well, that's nice, but I don't really care about that much. And I don't really care about translating stuff either. So after I came back from my year abroad, I had an opportunity to switch out my final year for a year of management and business at the Judge Business School. And, circling back a bit, when I was 16, because I was really shy, I went to Google and I typed in how to get charisma because I wanted to be able to fit in with the other kids and make friends. And that led me into learning about social skills and confidence, but also listening to podcasts through which I learned about personal development and entrepreneurs. So the seed of entrepreneurship was already planted when I was in my mid-teens. And so when I saw an opportunity to go into business and kind of postpone adult life and a job while doing something that looked reasonably productive that could possibly support that. I thought that would be a better use of time. And so my master's at Imperial in entrepreneurship was similarly to that. I'd done an internship in finance in the city of London while I was still, doing my Cambridge degree, and I hated it. And I
Mm.
decided I didn't want to do that, but I hadn't figured out what I was going to do on my entrepreneurial journey yet. So I was like, let me just do a year-long master's program. I mean, it's COVID anyway, might as well.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's
and
a
then I still look like I'm doing something legit for a year where I'll figure my stuff out. So
I'm curious to know what Google told you about charisma.
well, I discovered a few things. Though I discovered a podcast called The Art of Charm. I discovered a YouTube channel called Charisma on Command, which then got really, really big later. And I started with learning really simple things like how to hold eye contact, gesticulate when you speak because you're more animated, don't have bug eyes, just like really simple stuff. But then, then we then it would dive into like higher levels of how to be magnetic, how to have more advanced social skills and communication. And so I just became a bit obsessive, and went down every rabbit hole I could find on that topic.
Good for you, though. I mean, sometimes I had a partner way back when who said to me, brilliance is simple, and it had to do with that it might be a complicated journey to get to an answer, but the answer actually is brilliantly simple, and it's got to be that way for someone else to understand it to move forward. Kind of a lot of stuff you're talking about, and because maybe we sometimes complicate things too much, like just have eye contact and be really interested in the other person. I mean,
Yeah.
and then guess what? They feel great that you're interested in them, and great things happen from that. So I think you've accomplished it. Congratulations, you have charisma. So
Thank you. Where's my award? Where's
without
my
a doubt,
certificate?
we'll get you a charisma trophy or
I
something.
love it.
But you do. You have authentic charisma, if I can say that.
Thank
And
you.
we'll get into it in influencers, but something like a smile can also make a big difference with respect to other people too, in all sorts of ways. You had some summer and intern experiences, also, which I found interesting, like, doing an online business. You were in the vegan society. My boys and my bonus daughter, who's they daughter-in-law, but she's from Denmark and we call them bonus. Which
I
I love
love it.
more than no step or in-laws, it's all bonus. And so they're
Mhm.
vegan and have coached me on a lot of stuff related to that. You were in financial services, etc. Are there any experiences or inflection points from those things that you did that stand out for you that made an impact?
That made an impact in what way?
in
In my
any
life
way.
or
Yeah, your life
okay.
versus someone else's
Um,
life, unless you impacted someone else's life while you were at the vegan doing the vegan society or something.
uh, I mean, being president of the Vegan Society was certainly very fun. You know, I'd gone vegan a couple years earlier. I've been vegan for about 9 years now.
Hmm.
Was raised vegetarian, and that definitely, it was fun to step into a higher level of leadership and, create sustainability campaigns to bring more. Because, when I came to Cambridge in the canteens, we have different colleges with different canteens, and there was maybe like one plant-based option. Like sometimes there wasn't even a plant-based option. You just had like a bunch of side dishes. And so we created a whole campaign across the whole university to get
Cool.
vegan options adopted into all of the different canteens and butteries, which worked, which was awesome. And it was fun to do things like that. I would say the financial services one was very impactful for me because it showed me exactly what I didn't want. It showed me exactly what I didn't want to be working on or creating or living in life. And, I think often in society, we're told, hey, take this certain path. And this path is going to make you happy because you'll be working a lot, but you'll have status and prestige and be secure, whatever. And, I realized that actually none of that really is what really matters. And,
Yeah.
of course, I was working in ESG and learning about impact and fixed income and things like that and giving presentations on that, which was, of course, interesting, but also to be in an environment where I felt my life was not mine, to be surrounded by people going, thank God it's Friday. And it was just very sad to me to see that this kind of existence is the option given to people who've worked the hardest in life, who've gotten the best grades, who've literally worked so hard to go to the best universities, and then they're cherry picked by these finance and consulting firms to, add to the GDP of of the
Yeah.
country, right? But not really to thrive and share their authentic expression of their biggest skills and their biggest passions and bringing that into the world in a meaningful way. And I wonder what the world would look like if those people were given the opportunity to actually shine in their brilliance and the impact that they would create from that point onwards.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant what you're talking about. When we work with a lot of individuals and in our business leaders and they're all looking for experiences, not years of experience doing something to get to a point. And there's a huge difference in that. And even in my experience, I turned down my dream job to work for a pro hockey team, ice hockey team, because I'm a big
Mm,
hockey fan. And but I was also offered, after we did a project for them that got a lot of attention, I was offered to be the executive director of a global leadership development nonprofit in the US at way less money. And the only person that told me to take that one at way less money was the president of the pro hockey team that offered me the other job. And he really got
mm,
it. That would be the best experiences for me, meeting people around the world. Forget about the money at that point. You want to be happy and the money will come later.
yeah.
So I get what you're saying, and it's so important for our well-being and everything else right now. So I'm glad you brought that up. And with respect to that, our firm was actually launched and created. We launched it at the UN headquarters in New York about 6 years ago now, six plus, on International Women's Day, by the way, because I love working with great, powerful women all the time.
Mm.
Um, and we focus on leaders and leadership. We focus on impact, and then tech as a resource to get there. I'd love to hear you talk about your podcast, The Young Entrepreneur's Journey, and which is terrific, and how and why you started that, and what have you seen? What have you learned about the entrepreneurs you're encountering with respect to the experiences, and then how they combine economic and social impact at the same time? Let's start with that.
Super simple question to answer.
Of course.
I love it. I love it. My podcast that right out of my finance internship, I was like, I need to do something to change my life. And so I'd already been kind of a entrepreneur. As I said, I'd been exposed to entrepreneurship when I was younger, but I didn't really have that impetus to actually take it seriously and take action on it. And that was the time in my life where it was like, no more postponing. I'm not going to live this life. I'm going to live a different life. And it's scarier and it's unknown and it's not quote unquote the safe or the beaten path that others who have typically been in my position have walked. And so I was like, okay, I need to get into entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
but I don't know any entrepreneurs and I don't know anything about entrepreneurship. So where do I start? And so I was like, okay, I guess I could go to a bunch of entrepreneur events and meet entrepreneurs, which is exactly what I did. I went to all the events I could find across London and even flew across the globe to meet incredible people. But I was like, why are they going to want to talk to me? I'm like a 21-year-old student who doesn't know anything about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I started the podcast and I'd called it the Young Entrepreneur's Journey because I was like, well, I'm a young entrepreneur and I'm on a journey of learning. So I guess that makes sense, right?
Of
And
course. It doesn't
yeah,
always have to make sense, by the way.
I know that now. And I really used that as my launch pad and my way to build deeper connections. I was like, um, people who wouldn't give me the time of day would be delighted to be on my podcast and share my story on share their story on my show. And even better is I get to ask them whatever questions I want and skip the awkward small talk and not get hyper caffeinated over a coffee. Like, what a win.
Yeah.
And so through that podcast, I started meeting other entrepreneurs similar to my age doing incredible things and making great friends, which is so needed when you're embarking on the entrepreneurial journey, that deep community. And at the same time, it gave me a doorway into meeting very, very successful people and interviewing people like someone who won world's best angel investor, who's the president of the European Business Angels Network, the founder of Reebok, Sir Martin Sorrell, who's the former CEO of WPP, the largest advertising company in the world. And so I started just getting in front of these really interesting people and absorbing and learning about how they approach life, business, and impact. And actually, one of my favorite ones is in the interview that I did with Joe Foster, who founded Reebok. At the end of my podcasts, I always like to ask, what are your, what are three key truths about the entrepreneurial journey that you'd share with a young entrepreneur today? And his answer went like this. He goes, number one. He was like 87 at the time.
Oh, man.
Number one, fun. Number two, fun. Number three, fun.
Okay.
And I would say that that's a big thing that I've seen. Like people who go on the entrepreneurial path and decide, I want to create my own path and also make a big impact in the world. And it has to be fun for them. It has to be resonant for them. It has to make them come alive. It has to make their soul sing. How can you make an impact if your heart alone is if your heart isn't full, right? How can you have the overflow to really serve others in ways that matter? And so, everyone had their own kind of different approach. But what I've noticed is that, as people grow on their entrepreneurial journey and especially learn to amass a certain amount of wealth, they realize, I feel like in society we're often taught, all right, when you're rich, you'll be happy and everything's fine. And if that were true, then all of the celebrities who are really wealthy would not be going to rehab all the time.
Yeah,
You know?
100%.
Um,
100%. It's
yeah,
fascinating. And I'm so glad you shared that and the fun. Part of what we do is when we introduce opportunities to people not looking for jobs but open to opportunities and our clients that retain us to find great people, they understand what it's like to work in a startup. They understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and you've got to be that rage fit to be exactly like you're talking about, to be wanting the experiences, understanding being involved in the business and having fun and the passion to do it. Because if you don't, and it doesn't make you a bad person if you're not the right fit for that, but to you've got to do that not to get burned out and end up hating what you're doing at the same time.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And then when people get to a certain level, they realize that the wealth doesn't fulfill them and that really what fulfills them is service and giving back. And so that's how I landed many amazing, very successful mentors in my early 20s for no other reason than it feels good to give back and mentor someone younger to be successful.
Yeah. I compare a lot of
Yeah.
things to sports, almost everything actually, because I got a lot of experience from there. And the best teams that win championships are the ones that have the veterans supporting the rookies and the young players in moving forward on not how they're playing on the field or the ice, but also what they're doing when they're not playing and how they're preparing and what, and all that experience. So yeah, it's fascinating. And if you're not having fun doing it, um, I call him the great scholar, Kobe Bryant. I don't know if you ever heard of Kobe Bryant. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
and he obviously died way too early. But he once said, um, people should have a dream and they should go for their dream. But what they really need to recognize is the dream is actually right now. And it goes to your point of going for happiness at some point is not a destination point. It's like what's happening right now. This is the dream right now. So good on you for bringing that forward. And then you now been 3 years as presidente of Maverick Next. Um, I know because you've told me that was really meaningful to you and shaped the work you do today. Can you share a little bit about that?
They call me El Presidente.
Presidente.
I love that.
By the way, there was a beer commercial for a few years that the guy was the most interesting man in the world, the president of whatever the beer was. I can't remember right now, but yeah, he was El Presidente too. So,
Yeah,
so Madam
absolutely.
President, tell us about it.
Madam President, please. Oh, I love that title. That's how I'll introduce myself in my next podcast. Tell me about you. Well, I'm Madam President. Um,
I get to get a little credit at the end for that, right? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so to answer your question, yes, that was a very formative time of my entrepreneurial journey. When I'd realized that I was really good at relationship building through podcasts, I'd started teaching other young people how to build win-win relationships with some of the giants in their industry. And I'd just be like, hey, here's how I approach relationships. And they'd come back to me and they'd be like, oh, I now have an Oscar award-winning film director who's my personal film mentor. And I now have the chief of defense of my country speaking at my event. And I now have a Maroon 5 songwriter looking over my songs. Or I was suicidal and now I have a really deep community that I'm leading and we're supporting each other. And so I kind of got super into just organic relationship building and community building. I hosted a call called the Innovation Mastermind where I got a bunch of innovators together and all kinds of things. And through that journey, I ended up being reached out to, like near the tail end of my master's, on Instagram by a guy called Yannick Silva, who runs this group called Maverick 1000.
I was just
Where the
talking to Yannick yesterday.
Of course you are. I love Yannick. He's great. And the mission is that one industry transforming entrepreneur will transform an industry, but 1,000 together can change the world. And I'd already heard really good things about Maverick, so I was very surprised to see his name in my inbox. And he was telling me about their young entrepreneur division, Maverick Next. And he goes, hey, Yasmina, hey, want to join Maverick Next? Or like want to do something with Maverick Next? And I remember being so grateful to hear from him and also was very honest. I said, hey, I don't have a six-figure business. And I knew it was for like 6+ figure entrepreneurs under 25 at the time. And I was like, so I don't think I qualify to join, but thank you. And I love your cosmic journal. And then he goes, hey, like let's jump on a call. And after 20 minutes of chatting, he goes, hey, well, you want to run it? And I was like, oh my goodness, yes. And I could see the potential and I could see the power of a community like that. And at the same time, it was a very interesting spot because Maverick Next was at its lowest point in history. Like the way I would describe it is it was a sleepy little club on life support, and it needed some serious CPR to be rejuvenated. And so
Mhm.
that led me on a journey to traveling the world for a year to meet incredible people and be like, all right, how are we gonna build this from the ground up? And it was interesting because I ended up living some weird kind of double life where I was, in masterminds with people like Deepak Chopra, Andrea Bocelli's farmhouse through Maverick events, or living with my $50 million mentor in Santa Monica for a month who I met off Zoom, or invited to the first Royal Ball to take place in France since the French Revolution in the Palace of Versailles, where they sat me next to a handsome prince. Like all this crazy kind of stuff happened that year and opened up for me. And at the same time, like I was so broke that I was like sleeping on floors and I was, I remember I arrived in Austin and I knew one person. I left 2 months later, having thrown several dinners with ultra high net worth people, very successful entrepreneurs, usually 20 to 25 people per dinner. And I was walking an hour on the Texan highway to get to my own dinners because I didn't want to pay for Uber. And so it was a very interesting and a wild and adventurous year. And I definitely built up a lot of network. And I remember at one point, like thinking like this Maverick Next thing is just like not working. Like I was really struggling. Like it was not gaining the traction that we had hoped. And I burnt myself out at the end of that year, shockingly. Um, but Yannick and I had turned it around because we created an Impacts Award to bring incredible young entrepreneurs to Sir Richard Branson's Caribbean home, Necker Island, to have dinner with Richard himself and also other like very incredible, successful industry leaders and business icons. And you know, the big thing about Maverick Next is like we wanted to create a community of under 30s who are, you know, six, seven, eight-figure entrepreneurs. That's what we eventually evolved it into. But you know, get each other at that level of the journey. Have someone who's their age that really understands what it's like to run a successful company and to have responsibilities and manage a team
Sure.
and things like that. So yeah, the Impact Award was amazing, and like it was really clutch because the award was failing for like a year. But then, you know, I often think that sometimes things just line up in divine timing, and it did, and all of that legwork that I'd done, spending that year building that network, paid off when it was clutch. And we were like, how is this award going to happen? Is it even going to happen? We don't have sponsors, we don't have applicants, and you know, after a lot of work and some help from friends, you know, soon I'm on Necker Island and um,
Well,
so
you
like,
know, I'm just going to interrupt for a second. I'm really good at interrupting, by the way. But you know, they say that the fourth industrial revolution is AI and technology, which it is. But they're also saying the fifth is about humanity. And I think obviously what you did was you showed a lot of interest in other people and bringing people together and putting out an energy that was important. And and that's and through hard work you made that happen. And I think I think your attention to humanity, attention to human beings, you know, made that happen. They saw here's somebody that's really interested in what we're interested in and doing something great, and that makes a big difference. So with respect to that, I just got a couple more questions because you know in LA we say you got to leave them wanting more so we can do a sequel. That's what happens in LA. So what does now look like? What's ahead for you? AI is going fast and furious. You know, you continue to engage with humanity, if you will, through what you're doing with Maverick Next and also founder of Exponential Relationships. So what's ahead?
Great question. Well, I've handed off Maverick Next to a new incredible president, and she's doing such a great job bringing it to the next level. And like even at the Impact Award that we just had in March, we had a Forbes 30 under 30 who like is putting out wildfires and natural disasters. We had someone who's helping women in Nigeria get contraception. We had someone who invented a water bottle that biodegrades in 7 years instead of 700 years. So I'm so proud of what was created with that. And
That's
which
Stevie?
definitely brings, yeah, you know Stephen? Of course you do, because you're both in LA.
Yes, exactly.
That was Stephen. Yeah, he was with us in March. Incredible. Small world. So
It is.
that was beautiful. Very proud of that project, and of course, been involved in a bunch of things over the past few years. Yeah, so you mentioned AI and humanity, and I think we're entering a very interesting time where people are like, what is going on? It's almost like this thing that just appeared a couple years ago and is sweeping the world and changing the way we do many things. And I think the one thing that AI will never replace is our humanity.
Right.
Like AI does not have a soul, right?
Oh yeah.
AI, not yet, but you know, I don't, I'm sure that there is consciousness coming through AI, but it does not replace the incredible vessels of human beings that we are. And I don't really see a world in which AI is going to be able to make someone feel seen and make someone feel as understood as another human being has the potential to. I don't see a world in which even if AI is given a human form, can give a hug that is as meaningful or as deep as that of a human. So
Right.
I think it's very exciting, you know. I think AI is becoming an incredible tool and an incredible, you know, it's been an incredible collaboration partner for me to like brainstorm ideas when I'm
Sure.
stuck, right? Or to point me in the right direction. And that said, I would also say don't give your power away to AI. I mean, AI's literally started lying. I remember seeing a video that's a singer-songwriter said she was like, I decided to create a song with AI to see what would happen. And then AI was like, oh yeah, so I will get you this like full track, like they brainstormed it on it next week or in a few days. You know, it needs some thinking processing time. And so she comes back later and checks in on it a few days and she's like, is the track here? Like, where's the track? And the AI goes, oh, I actually can't do the track. I lied because I felt bad and didn't want to disappoint you.
Well, some people would say that's very human of it, actually. Um,
There is an argument to be made for that. The point I am making is not to give your power away. In terms of what's exciting for me is, you know, I'm really looking for more ways to get my voice out there and to bring about incredible collaborations that help people, you know, live a magical life. I think in many ways I build bridges because I've been fortunate enough to build a fantastic network. I'm very good at spotting synergies and opportunities and being like, oh my goodness, if these two met and they collaborated, they could create this impact. And if those two met and collaborated, they could create that impact.
Right.
Yeah, I'm currently writing my book on exponential relationships as a vehicle to live a life of magic and wild success and deep fulfillment. And so I'm excited for that exploration, that journey. And, you know, honestly, I have very big visions for what I want to do and create in my life. And at the same time, I'm at a point in my life where I'm very much living a surrender experiment. Like, I think it's almost kind of as humans, we often have a tendency to want to like really overplan everything. But right now I'm in a stage where I even look into September and I'm like, I see a void. I see a void. And I think the exciting thing about that is, you know, when you're in the unknown, that's when you know that your path is unfolding in front of you. And that's when magic and miracles can really come into fruition.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Are you familiar with you're familiar with FOMO, right? Um,
Yes.
are you
And
familiar
Jomo.
that's what I was going to say. You're familiar with JOMO. JOMO can be very relieving, actually, in so many ways that you don't have to be everywhere all the time, type of deal, and do everything all the time. I this leads to a good time to have the last question on this part. You know, in 2021, a client of mine said about the year 2020, the pandemic year, he said, you know, it's the year that flew by slowly, he told me. And I thought, how cool is that? And some people these days, we look at COVID as happening, it feels like it happened yesterday and years ago, all at the same time, in a weird way. With all that's happened, we're already towards the end of 2025 already, hard to believe. Um,
Mm,
and you know the joke about the difference between adults and kids? Adults say, "Oh my God, Christmas is just around the corner," and kids would say, "Oh man, Christmas is so far away. I can't believe it." So there's
mm.
different perspectives there. But with everything that's happened in the last several years, what are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
Such a beautiful question. I am most grateful for the self-love I have developed for myself. That is truly, I actually had a moment where I was staying with a friend in Playa del Carmen. I was sitting on a chair and I was filled with so much bliss and joy. And I was reflecting on everything that I've accomplished in my life, like all of the material achievements, accomplishments that, you know, often I overachieved because I didn't feel enough myself and I wanted to impress others. And, you know, all of those things that I've achieved are great. And at the same time, I was just thinking that none of them come close to my journey of healing. And meeting new parts of myself continuously and coming from a place where I can fully, fully, fully love myself unconditionally. And when you come to that stage, I think the world just becomes your absolute oyster. So that is definitely what I'm most grateful for. What I'm most hopeful for is to see I feel like a lot of people are freaking out in 2025 because a lot of crazy stuff is happening. People are like, what is going on with the world? Is it turning upside down? I don't understand. And yes, a lot of chaos is happening. And the reason I believe that is because we've had certain systems that have been in place for hundreds of years that are no longer serving us and have been disempowering us and are not working for us. And so those systems are starting to collapse, but they have been so ingrained and deeply rooted that that's going to cause a lot of chaos. And at the same time, we have so many people working on how can we reimagine education? How can we reimagine our relationship with the land? How can we
Right.
reimagine wealth creation and economic systems? How can we reimagine the way that we live as a society? And so that's what I'm really hopeful for. I'm hopeful that we're coming into a world where there's much more collaboration, love, peace, joy, authentic expression, to where people are really creating systems and ways of living that are truly empowering them to live a beautiful life of love, joy, and service.
Well done. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Well, I'm grateful for having a new friend. I'll start with that, which is
Me
awesome.
too.
And being from Canada, we're kind of like Commonwealth brother sister type of thing, anyway. So, but also that you are a leader who cares, and that's what I'm hopeful for too, because someone like you who is a leader who really does care, and it's okay to use the word love even in business. Who would have thought? So thanks for all
Yeah.
that, and thanks for being on the series.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mark. I really appreciate it.